I know who I am. I love who I am. I daily improve and grow. I am self-motivated and always inspired to excel. I have a clear vision. I have hope and faith. I believe in myself and my dreams. I am purpose-driven. My gifts and abilities are activated. I operate with full efficiency. I sweatlessly triumph in all things. I create the future of my dreams. I am daily transformed and translated. I operate supernaturally. I activate my divinity. I am practical and real. I have the ability to attain, consolidate, and aspire to new levels of success, wealth, and well-being. I positively critique and review my position and situation for improvement. I advance and grow daily. I am empowered to be all that I was created to be.
Whatever it is, and whatever it is you're doing, you're about to see and hear something that's going to hit you at the solar plexus. I don't know where that is, but it's a very important part of the body. It's a show that's before the show that's going to change lives. But the word we use in this room is transform. Whatever it is that you're doing, I'd advise, please stop and enjoy as we meet one man who has transformed what we call coaching in Africa and the rest of the world. That man has a name, but to all of you for now, he's simply known as TC. And TC simply means the catalyst. But how many of you know how the catalyst was born? How was that TC born is what I want to hear.
Six out of six children, last born, lost my father when I was 2 years old in a plane crash. Middle income earning family. My mother was left alone to tend to six children. I'm 54, going to be 55, this month.
You're going to be 50. You turned 55 in August.
Yes, I turned 55 in August. And so, my mother was an ordinary tailor and hairdresser.
Fashion designer, please. I beg your pardon.
Tailor. In those days.
Call it what it is.
Yes, in those days, she was a tailor. She had 2 sewing machines. She had a hair steamer, a hair dryer. And we stayed in a 2-bedroom flat. And during the day, she will roll out her steamer and her dryer and her machines into the sitting room, and that became, her office. She had a room and we had a room.
All 6 of you?
Yes.
How many girls, how many boys?
3.
Oh, wow.
And because most of my siblings were much older, university and all of that. So that's where I came from, and very, humble beginners. My mom has always been very religious. Always been in the choir at All Saints Church. So she had this handbag, this 2-year-old little handbag.
What did she call you, though?
Lanre. She calls me Lanruru.
Lanruru.
Yeah, that's her pet name for me, Lanruru. And so she would take this handbag to church every day, every time. And she'd always told me that God is your father. So for our sustenance, for my school fees, for everything, she always sought the face of God. Never remarried, never had a boyfriend after that. And so she's always, the best thing that my mom did was introducing me to God, not as a master, but as my father. And so...
And this was inadvertently, it wasn't like she was...
No, yeah. So here we are, growing up, humble, but I'd always known that I wanted to be somebody. I knew that I wanted to stand out. And so the journey continued. And, I went to university, studied civil engineering, graduated 5 years after.
Great Ife, or Unilag?
University of Lagos. Did my 5 years in engineering, graduated, started work. And I started working in Ultimate Communications Limited, Femi Ayeni. was my boss. He taught me very well. Incredible gentleman. He laid a good foundation for me because, the very first Lexus I saw was his. So I took him as a major role model. I studied his life. I looked at everything he was doing. And I said, I'd really like to be successful like this man.
And drive a Lexus, maybe.
I didn't even think about driving Lexus. He's calm. He's focused. He's determined. He just did his own thing, his own way. And I looked at the man and I said, I'd really love to be this man. And I worked with him for about 2 years.
Only?
Yes. Then I realized that, it was time for me to explore. So, I'm curious about life. I explore. And so I decided to pursue one of my passions, which was fashion. So one of the ways that I also supported myself through university was I used to model for Dakova. So I used to earn some money from Dakova. And so that, created a desire, a passion, to make impact in fashion. So we opened Cosworld, one of the only 2 men's fashion stores.
What do you mean by who's we?
My partner and I, Wale Ogunbajo, who is currently the CEO of Avis. So I'm also a shareholder and a partner.
So you guys have remained friends and
Yes,
partners?
my best friend is one of my best friends. And so we started Cosworld. Of course, I was an engineer, so I continued, renovating the different houses, offices. And then different things started to happen and the businesses started to evolve. GSM started. Mobile phones were a fashion accessory. So I went into telecoms. I became one of MTN and Equinet's biggest recharge card dealers. Because the banks were evolving and the new generation banks were starting. We used to brand their ties, their scarves, like Oceanic Bank, Lead Merchant Bank, NMB. So I went into image consulting, and then I went into training people in how to package themselves, and how to sell themselves. So I started training them for that.
It looked like you saw opportunities and you took it.
Yes.
Was it that drive for success that was driving you?
Yes, it was. I was just focused on being successful. For me, it was just about success. It was about money then. It was about, being relevant. It was about being known. And so I continued. Now, I'd always known that, the whole concept of business is about meeting needs and solving problems. And so what I did was once I had a client, I would develop a relationship with the client and understand all his needs or her needs. And so we started with clothing for men. And then we opened a female clothing store called Anonymous. Yes.
In Surulere.
Yes, in Surulere, Adenorogunso, yes. So we started on Adenorogunso. In fact, it was a very, very interesting story. So we used to sell from the boot of our cars. We used to sell shirts, shoes, ties from the boot of our cars.
Was your partner also in class with Wale?
Yes, he was in Igbobi College with me. He went on to school in the UK.
Oh, okay.
So when we both graduated, we both decided to do fashion. And so we'll sell from the boots of our cars. And one day we went to sell to a lawyer in Surulere. And so the lawyer wanted to pay, but says we should go and collect the money from his wife, Amaka, who owned a supermarket called Blueberries.
I remember Blueberries.
Yes, that big Blueberries. Yeah.
Into-
So we went to we went to collect our money at Blueberries, and I saw an opportunity. It was one of the top supermarkets then, and I saw some empty spaces in the corners. So I said to Maka that, we sell shoes, we sell shirts and ties and suits and all of that. Why don't you give us a concession? We'll design it, and then we will put our stuff. You can sell, and then we'll give you a commission. So that's how the idea of owning a store
Oh, yeah.
came about. And we were selling more.
Then know that.
So Amaka said to me after 3 months, why don't, she had a space in the compound. You say you're a civil engineer, I say yes. Why don't you develop that space? Convert it into a store. Don't pay rent, but be paying us commission.
Smart girl.
Very smart. I love her. Absolutely.
Are you still friends with her?
I haven't seen her in a long time. You know?
She might be watching this now. So.
Yeah, I'm sure she may be incredibly smart, you know, enterprising, you know, creative, innovative woman. And so that's how we had our first store. In 6 months, that store that we built, maybe half of this room, wasn't big enough anymore. And so we needed to go and rent a whole building further down on Ade Robinson. So we rented a whole building, and then we sublet the top to Sogis. And yeah, Sogis. And then we were Cosworld and then Anonymous.
I know those. I know those stores.
Yeah, that's how we started. And you know, for me, it was about thinking about the entire spectrum of the needs of my clients. If you had fashion needs, right, you know, you'd have other needs.
That's right.
So I moved into doing satellite communications as well, satnets, you know, those antennas. So I used to install antennas as well. And then for you to watch those satnets, you needed plasma screens, right? You needed home sound systems. So I went into, you know, doing DSTV. I went into selling plasma screens. I went into selling, you know, sound systems.
These are the catalysts, too. This is Lanry.
This is Lanry and Kupi.
Kupi, we talked about the Kupi.
This is Lanry and Kupi.
How do you spell the Kupi?
Kupi.
Are you kidding me?
It was born out of my old name. I changed my name as well. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Very interesting story.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you sure we're going to be able to do this in 1 hour?
Well, you know.
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going.
Okay.
So you know, I started doing plasma screens, sound systems, and then telecoms era started. Now, by this time, we had opened a store on Sanusi Fafua. So we had 2 stores. You know, Karimu Kotun, the intersection between Sanusi Fafua and Karimu Kotun.
Where Karimu Kotun hits Sanusi
Yes,
Fafua.
you just see my store right in front, Cosworld. So we had opened that additional store. And then the banks moved to that area. Standard Trust Bank, Lead Merchant Bank, NMB, Oceanic. So we started to service them. Then telecoms era started. And I thought, that's the fashion statement. So I flew to China 3 times to learn, number 1, how to unlock phones, right? Yeah, so I had them manufacture unlocking devices for me because buying new phones were expensive. So people will get contract phones abroad that were locked to a network and bring it to Nigeria. So I used to unlock phones. So at the end of each day, I'll be unlocking phones. And I used to sell phones. I used to sell SIM cards. I used to sell recharge cards. Then I saw an opportunity to go big on recharge cards. I was doing some work with Triumph Merchant Bank. And I decided that Triumph will be, you know, an outlet to sell recharge cards, you know, in bulk and SIM cards. So we went into a deal with them and we started selling. I saw another opportunity. For about 4 or 5 years, I'd seen some boys on Adinri Ogunsoya and some boys on Sanusi Fafuma where our shops were. You know, there used to be a lot of traffic.
Yeah, yes.
And I'd seen those boys every day for 4 years. So I went to ask who was there. Oh God, they used to sell handkerchiefs and sweets and all of that. I asked them, how much is your total profit each day? Said maybe 500. So I said to them, you know, I'll give you a pack of recharge cards. Then there were 15K recharge cards, 5K recharge cards, you know. I'll give you a pack. When you finish selling, this is the percentage I'll give you. Pay me. And then
So you trusted them. You didn't take money from them. You gave it to them.
On sale.
You were looking at the business.
Yes, I saw the business. And then when they started seeing serious money. Because the traffic then was mad. The traffic was crazy. Now, so these guys would go out from 9 a.m. to about 11, finish 1 pack, come back. So they were turning over like, you know, 6 or 7 times in the course of the day, making thousands of naira. So that's how I became one of the biggest recharge card dealers. And then we went into...
And the money was coming.
Cash. I mean, we were doing at that time. Recharge cards from the bank, from, the boys on the streets. They now decide to connect other boys. But I had a major guy that was doing on the island and a major guy on the mainland. We were big. Now, I was turning over between 3 to 4 million naira a day. Just recharge cards, SIM cards, and phones. And then a very good friend of mine came from Canada, Lukman.
One of our coaches.
Yeah, he now brought some phones at a good price. So I went into business with him. And that's how we made a lot of money from telecoms. Now, I'm laying this foundation to get to the question that you asked. How did I get into coaching? Now, I was doing this. I was making a lot of money. I was manufacturing furniture as well.
And you had 14 businesses.
Yes. So
ultimately.
Furniture manufacturing was one, interiors was another, construction was another, renovation was another, sound system. We took a store at the Palms when Palms opened. We called it the Sound Center.
I remember that.
Where the bowling arcade was.
That's right. That's right.
We had a store
as you come in from the other side.
Yes, you would see it. We used to do a lot of gadgets, a lot of plasma screens and sound systems. Now, so I was praying one morning.
As in praying?
I was praying. Remember, I laid the foundation that my mom had always introduced me to God as my father.
So prayer had been a way of life for you?
Yes. It was my lifestyle. Every morning, I used to pray minimum 2 hours. Just worshiping God, and praying to Him. And so one morning, I was praying, and I felt God walk into my room. And He says to me, my son, I need you to go transform lives by transforming minds. What the hell does this mean? He says, but I need you to shut down all your businesses. So I sat up. I said, get thee behind me, Satan.
What was he wearing? White or black?
No.
It's a present.
It's a present. And then he said to me, my son, you know my voice. The next dimension of your life, this is your purpose. I struggled with him for 6 months. I came back and forth. I kept questioning.
Were you married at that time?
Yes, I was. I kept questioning him. So who am I? What am I? I studied engineering. I'm a man that does millions on a daily basis. Why would I shut it down? I can't. Says you will. Because your life will not have meaning anymore without you fulfilling your purpose. And so 6 months, I asked him a lot of questions, and he took time to answer each question.
Were you asking him every morning? Did you have to withdraw every day? Did you have to travel? Did you have to?
I didn't go anywhere. So I used to live in VGC. And so for months, I took a room in Eco Tourist. You know those bungalows in Ekpe? I would go there at 6 a.m. I would 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I would study. I would meditate. I would visualize. I would pray.
Study the Bible.
Study the Bible. I was reading each week. I was reading maybe 4 to 6 books.
Did your family think you were crazy?
Everybody thought I was mad. Everybody thought I was crazy.
I'm sure some people still do now. Though I don't know you.
I know I'm crazy. Yeah, it was Steve Jobs that says it's only the crazy people that own the world. And you've got to have an element of craze for you to attain a certain level of success. So I knew that, I had to give it everything. Now, what was driving me really was that the grand commander of the universe,
your father,
the Almighty God, and my father came to me to tell me to do something for him, the one that knows tomorrow. I knew that there was no show for me. And he knows that anything he asks me to do is done. And I will go the extra mile. Then he said to me, you also have to change your name.
Oh.
Now, my name used to be Kupolu, which means that death takes an eminent person. Remember, I told you that my father died when I was 2 years old. My first brother also died in a car crash on Ikorodu Road. And so God said to me, that name connotes that death takes an eminent person. And those deaths were happening at about age 40. And I was approaching 40. He says to me, not on your watch. You are going to change that. And so I had a conversation.
Did he give you a name?
Yeah, says Olushola, which was my father's first name. So
What does Olushola mean?
Olushola, God does as He pleases. God gives and God brings pleasure and prosperity as He pleases. Bó ṣe wù Olúwa, ló ṣe ń ṣọlá ẹ̀. And then, I convinced my family. We changed our name. That's how a new era began. So I'm just about 20 years old with all this white beard, right? My life started about that time. And I started shutting down all those businesses. I started handing over some of those businesses. And here I am, doing what God has created me to do, doing what God has mandated me to do. So a lot of people think that I'm very smart and intelligent. No, I was chosen. I was called. And God, deemed it fit to reveal the essence for which I existed. And I'm committed to it. That is why we do what we do. I was created, so I've created a whole movement. It wasn't just about me. He says to me, go and create an industry. You would train people, certify people, you would mentor people, and you would create a movement. And we're at a very critical stage in that movement now where we're creating transformers. Mm-hmm. We're creating integrative coaches. We're creating catalysts that go into the world to birth transformation, to bring about transformation of lives by transforming minds. So I also created an academy, and then we started training. We started certifying. We started producing, coaches and therapists and psychologists and NLP practitioners. Then we went into mentoring, and then we got to a critical stage where we realized, right, based on COVID, that the demand for integrative coaching had increased.
I take a break. Everybody's just listening. My camera just listening. So I'm sure even you are listening and wondering, hey, there's some gaps here. And when I come back, I'm going to fill those gaps for you, right? And so don't go away. Just sit tight. We're going to be back.
I am successful. I look for and find opportunities where others see nothing. I am a lifetime learner. I am solution focused. I see only solutions. I am a solution. I unconsciously, consciously, and methodically create my own success. I permit myself to be successful. I am bold and courageous. I ask the right questions. I get the right answers. I am constantly in a positive, spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical state.
I realized that I didn't even introduce myself. Goodness gracious. My name is Adesuwa Onyenokwe. I'm taking it for granted. It was written on, and I happen to be one of those transformers. We call ourselves the unstoppables, transformers, all kinds of things. People who have learned. But I only came into the picture almost 20 years after it started. So I want to go back to 20 years ago, which is why I'm coming back to you now. Mm-hmm. 20 years ago, you got this call, you decided to shut down everything you did, now you're training, but there's a gap. So you got the call, you went 6 months, 6 months
6 months, yes,
of thinking and working and praying. Man, and then you came out of that 6 months and set up an academy, or you went to
No, I went to school. Oh yeah, the first training that I did was I went to test what coaching was. I didn't even know what coaching was. So all that I was doing was...
Did you hear coaching though?
No, I didn't.
Just said transform people.
Transform lives by transforming minds. So I started to research, how do you transform lives? And how do you transform minds? I saw psychology, I saw coaching, I saw therapy. And then I went back to God and I said, which way forward? He says coaching. And then immediately after I said that, a week after, I saw an opportunity to do a free 2 days at the coaching academy in the UK. So they did a free taster. So I went for the free taster. That was it.
And you were hooked.
That was it. I just knew.
Was that the Bandla one?
No, no, no. It's called the Coaching Academy.
Okay.
The Bandla one is the NLP.
That one happened.
Many years after. Bandla is one of the creators of NLP. And so, so that's how I went 2 days. And I knew.
They sucked you in, man.
I knew that this was it.
How?
Then I knew. I mean, it's almost like, how do you know when you're hungry? How do you know when you're thirsty? How do you know when you're full? When you've eaten? How do you know when you're satisfied? When you've quenched your thirst? I just knew that was it. And I went back to the coaching academy. I studied coaching. I studied performance coaching, life coaching. I studied NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I went back to study emotional freedom techniques. I went back to study matrix reimprinting. I just kept on piling all of those things.
Over what period did this happen?
I'm still studying.
I know that, but
I went on also to do a master's in coaching and behavioral change psychology. I'm now doing a doctorate in coaching and mentoring. I have to suspend it for 2 years. Oh, the 2 years of COVID.
Yes, because that's the next step.
Oh, yeah.
COVID changed everything.
Yeah.
Before we would come, because this studio we're at now is what's the training room of the Olusola Lanre Coaching Academy. And it was transformed so that the transformation show can happen. So you just never know. I mean, but the 2 years that this wasn't working, God knew why this lease was still running.
Yeah, I was paying rent, yeah.
We were paying rent for 2 years, but you discovered, I mean, one of the things you told us in class, which I wanted to touch on, is even the tax people came to you and said, what business are you doing that you're making so much money now?
Yeah.
It's like there was a need. Suddenly, people realized there's a need for this thing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, during COVID in itself was very challenging times for many people, including us. Because, like you said, this was our training room. This is where we used to train and certify coaches. And so all our trainings were physical. And then when COVID happened and there was a lockdown, there was absolutely, no way that we thought that we were going to be able to drink.
Did you go to God again?
No. Interestingly, what happened before then was that I'd gotten to a point in June 2019. After I've done this for so long, I thought we're doing the same old thing.
You had trained a lot of people. You set up an association. You had trained people who were even training people. You had coached.
I was creating competitors for myself. We're making, a living. We're impacting lives, transforming businesses. Some of our clients are First Bank, GT Bank, FCMB, the FMCGs. I mean, I was working with Ericsson, General Electric across East, West, Central Africa. And then I thought after we've done this for almost 2 decades, there must certainly be something else. I was uneasy. So I got consultants. And I shut down the business. And I told the consultants to now, on their own, do their research and come back to me. Are we supposed to still be doing it? So I got HR consultants, business strategists. I got branding consultants, right? And process engineering consultants to look at every single thing. So they went to do their work for about 3 months and came back and says that the future is going virtual. So they came back.
This was prior.
This was
2019.
They came back in August with their reports. Then I took the report to God, prayed about it, and I tweaked it. So we only reopened in about October 2019. I told all my staff to go. I told them to resign. Then I got the HR consultant. They drew up the strategy, the vision, the structure, the processes, and I outsourced recruitment to them. So they started recruiting. We needed to fill 15 positions, thousands of people that applied. So I didn't get involved in the process. So they filled about 12 of the positions. They said they can't find 3 people. So I said to them, go back to my old staff and let them reapply, but only interview them on merit. So those 3 spaces were filled up by my old staff. And then in October, we started again. We were still dilly-dallying. What are we going to do? How are we going to interpret this thing? What is virtual? What is digital? That's what we came up with. So COVID happened. The lockdown happened. Then I went back to the reports on the strategy. And I realized that God had prepared us.
That's why I got my training. It made it easier for me.
Yeah.
One of the things why I didn't take that opportunity in that 2019 was, going to class every day, drive out and all of that. So it was perfect. And I know that there have been several streams of the training now since then. But we still haven't addressed the gap. I said, how did the catalyst? I've been talking to Larry. Now, the catalyst. How did that name drop?
All right. So, remember that I went back to God for 6 months to ask him, this is what you want me to do. Why? How? But what am I? And who am I? And God says to me, you are the catalyst. But Adesuwa, I couldn't bring myself to call myself that for almost 10 years. That's right. At the beginning, because people didn't know what coaching was, I used to call myself a consultant. Because nobody knew what coaching was. When I go out and I say I'm a coach, they will say, basketball coach. So I decided what people understand is what I'll call myself. So I set up a company called Impression Management Consulting. And I ran that for a few years. After a while, God just asked me, is that what I told you to do? Is that what I told you to call yourself? So I couldn't bring myself. I thought it was arrogant. How dare you call yourself the catalyst? What the hell does that mean? God broke it down. He explained it to me. And he told me, at some point he said to me, if you don't call yourself what you are, you will never attract the people that you are created to attract. So, just only a few years ago, I intentionally began to call myself a catalyst. I began to put it out.
I'll have that beautiful roaring lion.
Yes.
So what does that indicate?
It requires boldness and courage to create an industry. And the mandate was for you to be the king.
Lion King.
The king in that kingdom. How do you now go out and tell people? So I told you that I come from a very humble background. Humble guy, how does he call himself the catalyst? So I had an imposter problem.
It's nice to know that the catalyst also has imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I had an imposter syndrome. How do I call myself the catalyst? How do I call myself the lion? How do I embody the lion? But you know what? He says to me, you can do it your own way.
But this is who you are.
Yeah, you just be authentic. Just be yourself. And that's why I try very, very hard, to stay calm, to be tranquil, to create an atmosphere of peace around me where people don't feel threatened. Because what I do can actually be very intimidating. Who I am and what I've been able to achieve can actually be very intimidating. And I see it, amongst my coaches that are my age, that are not within my space. I see it, and
But you're not in competition with anybody, clearly. Because if you were, you wouldn't go about doing what you're doing. You created the mentorship platform, and even brought some of us even closer to say we've got to have, like the apostles, more or less. Hey guys, I'm an apostle.
Yeah. I mean, remember, I wasn't created to, and I wasn't instructed to create a business. I was instructed to create an industry.
Yeah.
I was instructed to empower people. So quite a number of people ask me, why do you create competition for yourself? I mean, we've trained over 2,000 coaches. We've trained in excess of over 500 or 800 therapists and psychologists and NLP practitioners. People ask me, why do you create competition for yourself? I say, you don't get it. If I was in this business by myself, if I'd started this business all by myself, I'd probably maybe thinking that way. But I'm created to create an industry.
Hold that thought, because I want to go to transformation. We've more or less talked about the journey to transformation, to the extent that transformation is what you do, transformation is the reason you exist. But becoming a show was a different thing entirely.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was just a conversation. I remember you sending me a text someday, can we replicate this? The things we talk about in class. And I'm like, yes, I guess we can. And then you have this room full of so great coaches, and then there's this big need. So what was driving you when you decided to work with me to make sure this happened?
So we're at the stage of the vision that God showed me, where we need to take coaching to the world. Now, integrative coaching is a very unique, intervention.
Can you explain?
Integrative coaching is coaching that brings together different disciplines, from psychology to psychodynamic to psychotherapy to therapy to NLP to quantum physics to theology to sociology, to understanding energy psychology and coaching. There's a whole plethora of methodologies, methods, tools, processes, and being able to skillfully weave them together. Traditional coaching stays on its own. Psychotherapy stays on its own. Energy psychology stays on its own. Quantum physics stays on its own.
You have managed to put it
Integrative
together.
catalysis, right, is what harmonizes them for you to get rapid results. And this was very necessary during COVID. Absolutely became, the intervention.
Because it
during
helps people
COVID.
heal.
Psychological issues, emotional issues, trauma. I mean, if a coach thinks that only understanding grow model and helping people set goals is the solution of the future, it's joking. Without you understanding, without you being trauma informed, without you understanding psychodynamics, without you understanding the impact of sociology on your psychology, or your psychology on your sociology, right? Or your theology, that is your ideology and the essence of your spirit, and its impact on your soul and on the things that you are able to achieve. You are joking, because COVID did a number
On people's
and we haven't even seen the worst of COVID yet.
Yeah, one of the statistics that you quote is in by 2030, maybe 60, the number of deaths from depression is going to be at
Depression will be the world's #1 killer.
killer of people.
By
So that's
2030.
where integrative
Coaching.
coaching can solve the problem. So how does the transformation show? How is it going to help to that? What made you want to do this? Because I asked you, is this about making money? And you said no. But it's costing money to do this show.
Oh, it's costing us a lot of money. And like I said, once God tells me to do something, I do it. I don't ask him for financial reward or benefit. After all, he says to me, he's my source.
So I worry.
So why bother? He's the one that knows tomorrow. But he's explained it to me. And he says, coaching, integrative coaching or integrative catalysis, as we call it, is the intervention that helps people transition rapidly from where they are to where God has designed them to be, to where they desire to be, to where they deserve to be, but they don't know.
So how's this show going to change that?
It's going to create awareness, because in real time, you will experience coaching happen before your eyes. You will see a coach and a coachee work together, and you will see yourself in that coachee. You would see your situation in that episode. So what really happens is that when you are watching it, you are getting coached. Now, there are 12 dimensions to your life, albeit your health and well-being. And so, the health and well-being coach, fitness coach, is going to be having a conversation with a coachee. The spiritual coach is going to be having a coaching session with someone that has a spiritual need, right? Which we all have. A relationship and marriage coach is going to be having a session in real time with someone that has a relationship or marital issue.
Fun and recreation.
All of those 12
The
dimensions.
12 dimensions, we call it the wheel of life.
Yeah.
Right.
So the 12 episodes of this transformation show for season 1 is going to try to capture all of those 12 dimensions. And so we put out, an expression of interest for people who wanted to get coached, and people responded.
More than 100 and
Over
something.
120
Over a 2-day period.
yes, within 2 days. And that further confirms that is the time and the season for the show. And so we put it together.
Just for the benefit of those watching, everybody in that are real life people that we didn't even know about before, because the production company that worked with us to get this done was to ensure that we got these people together. And all this was done within 4 weeks, from conception to delivery. So it was something that had its time done. So
And that's where you come in, right? I'd never ever in my life produced a talk show.
That's right.
I've been on several talk shows
as a guest.
as a guest and also as the therapist, right? Addressing issues or a coach.
Like Ebony Life
Like
TV.
Ebony Life TV. But I'd never produced mine. And I thought to myself, you are a coach. You
Integrative coach, I beg your pardon.
integrated coach. You understand, our message and
Absolutely.
our essence. Who could I collaborate and partner with? Who could I work with to birth this? And it was only you.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to you. And here we are talking about it. But the real transformation really that would occur is when people watch the show. As they watch it, transformation will happen in each of the 12 aspects of their life. And transformation to the next level of the coaching industry will also happen. Transformation for Nigeria and Africa will also happen. Because when people's minds are transformed, their lives will transform. When minds and lives are transformed, their ecosystem will be transformed. So the transformation show is my gift to Africa, is my gift to Africans for our renaissance, for our transformation, our evolution back to who we were, numero uno.
We are number one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you remember what you shared recently about how Africa is where the world started.
Look, we were the cradle of civilization. When the Bible talked about Egypt, it was talking about you and I and every black man. It's quite interesting to know that astronomy, astrology, medicine, architecture, engineering, if you've gone to Cairo, you would understand what I'm talking about.
Everything's there.
If you just go and look at the pyramids, it tells you your history. It tells you how intelligent you are. It tells you how enterprising you are. It tells you, how much into the future you were in, right? It tells you and gives you that sense of authenticity and identity.
Okay.
It is time for us as Africans to wake up to the reality of who we are.
And it starts with a transformed
Number
mind.
one, starts with
A
a transform.
transformed mind. Okay, well, the catalyst, I've been talking with the catalyst. We talked about the need. We've talked about what the show is going to be about. But I just wonder, for a man who still keeps reading, his library is lined with books. That's one of the things those of us who became mentees had to learn to do. Gosh, you don't want to know how many books you have read. You won't kill somebody or kill somebody.
Somebody.
But however, what else? I want to round up on that. What else? What else?
So, wherever God takes me. So currently He's taking me around the world to deliver a very critical, powerful, and succinct message. It is possible. And what does that mean? If you looked at Israel, if you looked at countries that, are, really thriving today, part of the people that rebuilt it or built it are people that went into the diaspora. So if you look at Asia, Singapore, India, there were people that were sent out and came back to rebuild. And so God is sending me into the world to go speak to every black man across the world. So we did It Is Possible Masterclass in Masterclass 1 in London on the 8th of January.
Okay, January.
I went back to do part 2 in June. We went to Glasgow in July to do another one. We went to Ghana in July to do another one. I flew to Kenya in July to do another one. And so, we're taking the masterclass and the message, it is possible, to the world. The next stop is America, Canada, South Africa, Rwanda, and it is to awaken the mind of the African man. It is to re-engage them. It is to
reconnect them toward
for them to reconnect with their essence and to believe again. Because at the heart of everything that anyone can achieve lies this belief. One of the most profound statements and quotes I've ever heard is, if only you can believe, then all things are possible because of your beliefs. Now, see, they did a number on our minds.
the colonialists.
We stopped believing in who we were. In fact, we don't know who we are because they wiped off our history. Everything. I was watching a video by Burna Boy. You know, it says that, you know, they took our history, they intercepted it, and then they continued the story with theirs. So they taught us about the queen. They taught us about things that are not relevant to us. So we've forgotten our history. You can never become what you're supposed to be if you do not connect with who you are and where you're coming from. And therein lies, this is my role.
These are guys that always go with you, but you have 6 of
I
them.
have 6 of them. There's Fela Anikulapo Kuti, there's Nelson Mandela, and there's Bob Marley. You know, those 6 guys, these 6 guys, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and, you know, Martin Luther King Jr., these 6 people inspire me.
Amongst others.
Amongst others, in the heat of and the heart of COVID, when, you know, we were on lockdown, I looked at them and the challenges that they overcame. And days where, you know, things were tough, I would look at them and they would spur me on, because every day I was on Zoom. I was working with people that were almost dying, people that COVID was killing, people that their businesses failed, people that had lost money, people that were mourning, and dark times, very, very.
So even with our classes, we always had either these 3 guys,
Or the
or
other
that 3
three,
guys. I knew where you were, depending on what part of the world.
Always my inspiration, and I really want to thank them, even though, you know, they're no longer alive. Spirits of just men.
Anyway, so what I'm going to do is, I've got so much, I'm going to get some of the cutaways from here and I'm going to place it all over the rest of the show. But the truth is, this is just setting the tone. The who we know, the what is going to come out on the show, and the how is going to happen after you watch it. What are you going to do with it? It's going to be probably maybe 13, whatever we cut. But we really must go. You can talk with TC forever. This time we're going for real. We're going for real. My producer is minding me down, but you all just need to watch the transformation show. He says this is just season 1.
Yeah, this is just season 1. Season 2 is going to be
Right after?
immediately after. So we're going to be showing 4 seasons each year.
Wow.
And you're going to be watching some of the coaches that I've worked with in real time. You know, you're going to be watching some of the coaches I've worked with in real time. You're going to be experiencing real-time coaching. You're going to feel what the coaches are feeling. You're going to engage. You're going to be drawn in. You know what? Just leave everything that you're doing and stay glued to the TV screens, because this is a reality show like no other reality show.
Look at this man's nails. Can you zoom into the nails? Just zoom into the nails. Self-care is very important.
Yeah.
And you're somebody who's not afraid to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
We've seen you almost cry, where you've seen you, you know, in class, how you throw love constantly. And I find it, and the class is usually full of mostly women. And, you know, we talk about this. It's like men are afraid to be vulnerable. Were you like that at some point in time?
Oh yeah, I was, but I had to, you know, one of the things that God told me to do is to live my talk.
To live.
I've got to
walk
live
the
it.
talk.
Yeah, I've got to walk. Yeah, but he didn't say walk it. It says live it. It says live your talk. And so, you know, it's quite interesting because the definition that people give to things like love is what? So when we talk about love, we're talking about God, because the Bible says God is love.
Yeah.
Right? And anywhere love is, there is healing. There's actually medical benefits of love. There are 14 medical benefits of love. So when we talk about love in our class, right, we're talking about a love intervention that heals. And so when we share love, what we're doing is we're sharing God. When we talk about love, we're talking about the healing energy, because the frequency of vibration of love is the highest frequency that exists in the universe. And where there is God, where there's the energy of love, there is healing.
Okay, but why aren't men vulnerable?
Yeah, okay. So men are not vulnerable simply because we're taught not to be. As little boys, when you hit your foot on the ground, when somebody takes your meat and you want to cry, what do your parents say? Boys, don't cry. Man up. And so we're programmed to be like this. I say your nurture creates your nature. So we're nurtured into this nature. And so we have to unlearn it.
But don't we need men to man up, really?
We need men. You see, I am both male and female. You are both male and female.
Now I know. Right?
Yes, right? You've got both male energy and female energy. My left side is my female energy. My right side is my male energy. If you go to Genesis 1:27, the Bible says, and God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created Adam. So Adam was both male and female. That was the only way he could extract Eve from inside him. So men have killed their female energy and their female side. Men need to man up. Part of being a man is to be whole.
What about women too? Haven't they
Women, part of being a woman is also to be whole. Because you know what? You can't all be mishy-mushy. You've got to be tough at times. You've got to be able to be a driver, to thrust, to achieve, right? What if the man is not around? What if the man goes away? You have to be able to be mother and father in the interim.
So you pull up the male.
Yes, I say that, parenting, true parenting for the father is to be both father and mother. True parenting for the mother is to be both mother and father. That's what makes you complete. But because I'm incomplete as a father, there's a deficit. Because you are incomplete as a mother, there's a deficit. So that's what creates dysfunction in the family, in the home, and dysfunction in the children, and then dysfunction in the society. And so men have been trained to kill their female sides.
So I guess that's why we need coaches, because the coach helps you to create that harmony.
Integrative coaches.
Integrative coaching. That harmony is so necessary, where you don't kill one side for the other.
Yeah.
Oh, anyway.
Chop knuckle. Boom.
Chop knuckle. That's the lion. That's it. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. For real, it's a wrap.
If you need a coach or therapist, or would like to train to become a certified coach or therapist, please call +234 8098 883 555 or +234 8077 077 000. Alternatively, send an email to hello@thecatalystng.com.